Chapter 8 Boys. It is the night of the Academy Awards, and nominated writers Matt Stone and Trey Parker walk the red carpet. Stone, a thin, nerdy man in his late 20s, is wearing a peach spaghetti strap dress with additional fabric long enough to drape over his arms. It is based on the 1998 Academy Award winner Gwyneth Paltrow's dress, but on him the front sags low on his droopy, underdeveloped chest. Parker, his friend and fellow co-writer and co-creator of the show South Park, is wearing an imitation of Jennifer Lopez's previous Academy Award outfit, a seaweed green dress that creates an open V from the shoulders and exposes his patchy torso down to the belly button. He usually favors a young Bill Murray, but tonight, wearing a wig with long Lopez-inspired locks and ample lip gloss, he looks like a very hirsute woman. Nominated for Best Song from the South Park movie, the two friends had just launched South Park 3 years earlier, which itself is based on a 4-minute homemade short called The Spirit of Christmas. The film featured two school children who witness their friends get murdered by an evil, frosty-like snowman. The Rankin and Bass cartoon gone wrong ends with a battle between the snowman and baby Jesus. The infant eventually decapitates the snowman by tossing his boomerang-like halo. George Clooney and other Hollywood heavy hitters supposedly passed around the video among each other, and it caught the attention of Comedy Central. Stone and Parker were working at pizza chains at the time. They weren't the managers. The twosome used the South Park cartoon to parody Al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden and President George W. Bush, African famine, and the N-word, right-to-life icon Cherry Chavo, and Scientologist actor Tom Cruise, and any other controversial topic of the moment. Its closest competitor, Fox's The Simpsons, spent several months drawing each episode. South Park, with its relatively crude animation and simple visuals, was written, drawn, and edited within a week. Stone and Parker were able to quickly address current events. The Terry Schiavo episode, which won them an Emmy, aired the week she died. It consistently drew more than 3 million viewers and became one of the most watched shows on television, surpassing Comedy Central's very popular The Daily Show with Jon Stewart. The audience seemed to connect with South Park and its fart jokes, offensive language, and racy content. America was going through a shift. The Latino population was growing almost exponentially, and because of heavy immigration and a history of having larger families, was expected to be the largest ethnic group within 2 decades. Affirmative action and more economic and educational opportunities put more African Americans and women in positions of power. In 2001, Colin Powell became the first African American Secretary of State, replacing Madeleine Albright, the first female one. That same year, Clarence Thomas was appointed an Associate Justice of the Supreme Court. MTV, which once was reluctant to play Michael Jackson videos from 1982's Thriller, highlighted music from inner city artists like Dr. Dre, Tupac Shakur, and Sean Diddy Combs. The National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, or NAACP, held a press conference to discuss if its people should be called Black or African American. Secretaries became administrative assistants, midgets became little people, ghetto-raised youths became at-risk kids. A new term, politically correct, or PC, became shorthand for any euphemism used to cushion judgment. While being PC was in fashion for a decade, pop cultural icons began attacking the concept as the new millennium arrived. Comedians like Chris Rock and Bill Maher and programs like Mad TV and South Park took America to task for its political correctness, using biting humor and rude behavior to show that being PC just changed the language, not the actual judgments made. It relieved the symptom, not the cause. If The Simpsons, which began in 1989, parodied how dense the typical American family was, 1996's South Park showed, despite our enlightened cultural sensitivity and newfound morals, how little we have progressed in thought, and how much we pat ourselves on the back for superficial changes in rhetoric and outward behavior. Video games are going through a separate but parallel rebellion. In the early days of wood panel Atari 2600s and lively Midway arcades, Konami had a popular game with a frog crossing the road, Frogger. One-hit wonder Gottlieb made players hop a furry, hose-nosed monster along pyramid-shaped blocks, Qbert, and a young Nintendo established itself with a plumber dodging flaming barrels tossed by an ape, Donkey Kong. Fed by an open-minded audience interested in new experiences, there seemed to be no limit to what was artistically possible. Time creates standards. Joysticks began looking the same, characters fit into definable categories, and specific genres were established. There was a fast action twitch shooter, the novel like role playing game or RPG, the action slash adventure, the sports or fighting title, the first person shooter or FPS, and the strategy game. By the time the game industry hit the $1 billion mark, anything beyond classification rarely got on the shelf. Experimental games usually didn't get the funding from publishers. It was only a matter of time before the status quo would be attacked. In summer 2003, 60 Minutes 2 visited Acclaim in its Long Island offices. The game company had made a parody of Activision's Tony Hawk Pro Skater series. Tony Hawk Pro Skater was the first sports game to give skateboarding an arcade sensibility. You could do complicated, cool-looking tricks with a few quick joystick flicks. The series had been a consistent bestseller since beginning on the Sony PlayStation in 1999. Acclaim created its own Tony Hawk-inspired game, Dave Mirra BMX, and it failed both critically and commercially. When talks for the next Dave Mirra BMX began, Acclaim began experimenting with new marketing techniques. It offered new parents a significant sum of money if they named their child after its new action game, Turok. It reportedly started buying grave sites and real headstones to promote its undead game, Shadow Man. Once a solid leader of arcade to home translations, Acclaim could now not afford another failure. With sports figure Dave Mirra's blessing, Acclaim turned its BMX game into a Tony Hawk Pro Skater parody. It will be called BMX XXX. We wanted to do something that was different, that has been done before, co-designer Ben Fishbaugh told 60 Minutes 2 correspondent Bob Simon. You're going to see a hooker. You're going to run into a pimp. You're going to actually carry a hooker from one point in the game to another point in the game. 60 Minutes 2 have more than 10 million viewers. BMX XXX begins with you doing bike stunts in a Central Park clone. During a quick run through the park, you encounter a hot dog vendor who claims that someone is stealing his wieners, a can-collecting homeless man who speaks in 70s jive, a diarrhea-plagued dog, a firefighter complaining that his hose is limp, and the aforementioned cursing prostitutes and their pimp, a purple-suited African-American man in stack heel shoes and a wide leopard hat. One of the first missions is to steal the pimp's pink poodle and throw at the diarrhea-ailed dog to distract him from pooping. Successful players are treated to a 5-second animation of the digital dogs having sex, which is on par for other rewards received throughout the game. You create your own biker from scratch, from deciding a gender to number of back tattoos. Later you can unlock more options, including topless riding, which Acclaim touts as a feature on the game's back cover, with a black bar across the offending bits. Unlike Itagaki-san's Dead or Alive series, there is no quote-unquote jiggle factor. Characters' breasts are round and stiff, like old bakery bread, and stand still like large glandular rocks. You can find special tokens throughout the game, redeemable at Scores licensed strip clubs within each level. BMX XXX shows a brief title screen, Scores Manhattan, Candy, and an even briefer dance video of the stripper on the pole. It is on par with the movie Showgirls, but with grittier visuals. BMX XXX was released on the Sony PlayStation 2, Microsoft Xbox, and Nintendo GameCube. Walmart, KB Toys, and Toys R Us refused to carry the title. Sony made Acclaim remove the nudity on the PlayStation 2 version. This is a right we rarely exercise, a Sony spokesperson said. In the case of BMX XXX, we felt that some of the game's content did not fundamentally add to the overall experience, and is therefore included purely for effect. Dave Mirra sued Acclaim 3 months after the game's release, claiming breach of contract, injury to reputation, unfair competition, false advertising, and invasion of privacy. The extreme sports icon also asked to get his name taken off the game, saying he didn't fully realize what kind of game Acclaim was making. He was sued for $21 million. Both edited and unedited versions were critical and commercial disappointments. Several critics called it the worst sports game ever made. In September 2004, Acclaim filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy. The company was worth about $47 million, but it owed $145 million. Acclaim decided to liquidate its assets and close its doors, but didn't tell its employees. Basically, one morning we were locked out. A former employee told Game Developer magazine, "It was, don't bother coming in. They're late on the rent. Once they pay, we can go back in." They were never let back in. A week before Acclaim closed, a publisher called The Gathering released the Guy game on the PlayStation 2 and Xbox. It is a trivia game. In Titwits, one of the Guy game's levels, you watch movie footage of one of the women at spring break, young, tanned, and often peppy, answering a difficult question such as, what is the capital of Lithuania? Vilnius. The game then pauses and, while you stare at a freeze frame of her chest, asks you if she gave the right answer. She often does not. Wager the correct way several times, and the Guy game logo, which obscures the woman's privates, begins to go transparent until she is completely nude. The corresponding flashometer raises from soft and squishy to sort of chubby to its maximum length, super stiff. I feel innovation is incredibly important in the video game industry. Jeff Spangelberg, CEO of Top Heavy, the Guy game designers, said in a press release. With the Guy game, we set out to do something completely different than what had been done before. The Guy game did not sell many copies and did not do well with the critics either. So, what's with this bland party game that makes you sit through hours of girls blathering before perking up? Electronic Gaming Monthly said in an editorial. The college co-eds in a certain direct-to-video series, It's Wild, never had to name the current president before lifting their shirts and showing off their Dow Corning labels. The Guy game was inspired by Girls Gone Wild, the direct-to-video series started by Joe Francis in 1998. While acquiring footage from various reality TV specials, the 24-year-old noticed that freelance filmographers were mailing in an inordinate amount of live nude footage from Spring Break, Bourbon Street, and other public nudity hotspots. He then realized that the girl next door strip downs turned him on more than the average porn video. Convinced he wasn't the only person who felt that way, Francis quit his day job and began compiling what he considered the best nude clips. Going into debt, he bought late-night television advertising time, hired a cameraman, hit all the major spring break vacation areas, Cancun, Daytona Beach, Panama, to ask women to show their chests for the camera. Often he would get them to do more. Of course, the women probably did not know about his several accusations of rape, most of them from Girl Gone Wild participants, a dozen lawsuits of non-consensual filming, the restraining order against him by a Santa Monica neighbor, and his physical assault against a prominent journalist. Even he was surprised, he said, at what a young woman will do for only a Girls Gone Wild t-shirt. He boasts he doesn't pay them anything. Francis has aimed his cameras at a generation whose notion of privacy and sexuality are different than any other, Los Angeles Times adult business reporter Claire Hoffman observed. Nursed on MySpace profiles and reality television, many young people today are comfortable with being perpetually photographed and having those images on the internet for anyone to see. The popularity of being on the series was equal to how many people were interested in watching it. The music club style setup, where customers automatically received the next Girl Gone Wild movie if they didn't say no, was paying off. In 2002, 2 years before the Guy game, Joe's Mantra Films Incorporated sold an estimated 4.5 million tapes and DVDs. By the time the Guy game was out, Joe flew his personal Gulfstream jet to scouting areas. Critics suggested he was planning on buying the Playboy empire. Francis did not dispute it. In 2003, Playboy turned 50. The magazine's circulation, as high as 7 million in the 70s, had plummeted down to 3 million readers. Additional revenue from its once popular Playboy clubs and other brand extensions had decreased enough for the company to shut down nearly all of its traditional extracurricular ventures down. Playboy told the press its focus was now going to be on new media, member-based websites, DVDs, internet partnerships. In the early 90s, sophomoric British lad magazines stormed the American shore. Maxim, Stuff, and others were considered part of the usual publication cycle. Two or three publishers would jump on the same topic, such as the home-style publications Real Simple and Martha Stewart Living, or the men's tech publications Sync and Cargo in 2004, and the trend will die down in a year, leaving one or none of the magazines standing. As the new millennium came, however, the lad magazines weren't disappearing. They were growing. The biggest one, Maxim, went to 2.5 million subscribers within a few years. Its parent company, Dennis Publishing, began racking up several prestigious magazine awards. Playboy and Maxim seemed to be on the opposite trajectories. On the cover, Maxim featured the latest thin, young, but curvy Hollywood actress, wearing revealing lingerie or a tight bikini. Inside were near-nude young women and features bracketed by suggested pickup lines. No articles were over 1,000 words. Recurring themes were beer, women, and sports, and at least one article mentioned all three. Maxim appealed to a generation raised on softcore cable movies, heavy sexualized ads, and free internet porn. Playboy, which could have been Maxim's grandfather, was known for its groundbreaking journalism and hard-hitting interviews. Its risque reputation had quite mellowed. After Debbie Does Dallas or Harris Paris Hilton's sex tape, One Night in Paris, indeed, after internet pornography, who needs Mrs. December 2004 flashing her little hiney at us from aboard a yacht? Cultural critic Joan Asolella once told The New Yorker. One might answer that some prefer their sexual material softcore. If so, they can turn to the new lad magazine, such as Maxim or FHM, which showed the women clothed, if barely, and at the same time look more up to date than Playboy. Maxim had the ability to sit on a college kid's coffee table, right next to Sports Illustrated and Car and Driver, while Playboy, with its semi-nude covers, would have to sit under the mattress next to the sticky porn collection, assuming all the porn wasn't on a laptop. Playboy's heavily airbrushed pictures also went against the biggest trend to affect young women's taste, Girls Gone Wild. Creator Joe Francis said his goal was to show the girl next door naked, something that Hugh Hefner originally said 50 years earlier. But the Playboy aesthetic changed in light of breast implants, Adobe Photoshop, and other technological innovations. Girls Gone Wild fulfilled the girl next door promise, conveying youthful innocence, no matter how dark things may have been behind the scenes. If Maxim had made a home movie series, Girls Gone Wild would probably be it. Playboy was stuck between hardcore porn, which was free to anyone with an internet connection, and the soft, virtually guilt-free visuals, which were pushed by lad magazines and R-rated movies. One of Playboy's first new media ventures was Rush's Playboy the Game in 2005. He played 1953 Hugh Hefner, aka Hef, with three primary goals: build a magazine empire from scratch, facilitate intellectually stimulating parties, and have as much sex as possible. There are many little details, like buying office furniture, determining how much to pay models, and sending out party invites. A social climbers version of The Sims, Playboy the Game rewards players for making connections with the various characters in the game. You can prosper as a facilitator, with Hef introducing two people who want to work together, or as a social player, with Hef asking a woman to bed. After a brief pause, Hef will sit on the couch and watch as a woman strips down to her G-string, her round breast and nipples as tightly wound as corduroy, and does a little strip dance for him. Digital Hef doesn't seem to be able to hook up with the guys, as he said he did in real life. She then straddles his lap and jumps up and down, yelping and gasping with an occasional wee. It lasts for about a minute, none unlike the 5-cent pony ride outside of the supermarket. The photography sequence is a bit closer to reality. True to his real-life counterpart, Hef takes all the pictures when he starts the magazine. Once a model, a photo shoot, and a backdrop is in place, you look through the viewfinder lens and snap pictures as the perky computer-controlled model makes love to the camera. The women lacked the natural curves found in 2003's Dead or Alive Extreme Volleyball. And Playboy's biggest inspiration, The Sims, already had a dozen spin-offs and sold several million copies. Designer Will Wright dedicated the last decade and a half of his life to creating sim-based products. It was an uphill battle on both fronts. Rush was not the only company to do a sexy Sims-style game. For instance, in 2004, Eidos released a similar title, Singles Float Up Your Life. Playboy the game had the biggest marquee value. All the games had the same results. Reviewing Playboy the game, Electronic Gaming Monthly wrote, "Your appreciation for this game depends entirely upon your desire to see freakishly large cartoon boobs, because almost everything else in Playboy is a limp Sims ripoff." In October 2004, after several years' absence, Leisure Suit Larry returned in Leisure Suit Larry Magna Cum Laude for the PC, Sony PlayStation 2, Microsoft Xbox, and Nintendo GameCube. Al Lowe did not return with him. Sierra's new parent company, Vivendi Universal, was able to cut him out of the game development. This is likely because of the contractual loophole created when Lowe signed a contractor agreement 2 decades earlier. He had been involved in every sequel through 1996's Leisure Suit Larry 7, Love for Sale. The new game featured Larry Lovage, Larry Laffer's nephew, a virgin trying to have sex on his new college campus. Magna Cum Laude's women had grapefruit round mammaries and flawless skin. To hook up with someone, you have to beat several mini-games based on classic arcade titles like Pong or fraternity drinking staples like quarters. To play quarters, you bounce a quarter off the table to make it land in a shot glass. If you miss, you take the shot. If you make it, everyone else does. In one particular minigame, you maneuver one of Larry's sperm through a maze of viruses. Win and the woman will strip, if not have sex with Larry. There are no overarching storylines, no strong heroines, and no cheeky innuendos like the previous Leisure Suit Larry games. But there is a lot of nudity and cursing, two things that were heavily censored in previous games. A few months before the game's release, new Leisure Suit Larry producer Josh Van Velde said that his audience was a lot more sophisticated, or at least a lot more exposed to sex, than the purchasers of the original Larry games. We realized that if you can make people laugh and show lots of jiggling boobs, people will like it. Playboy.com reviewed the game in the fall of 2004, ending with, "Although the game can be downright funny and sexy, veteran fans of the series won't likely appreciate the new direction, while newcomers may find that once you get past the jokes and boobs, there's not much else to keep you playing." Electronic Gaming Monthly gave it the Shame of the Month award with a 2.5 out of 10 rating average between the three reviewers. When it comes to Larry, one of them noted, "Abstinence sounds pretty good." Lowe himself said he admired some of the jokes in Magnum Cum Laude. "I think the masturbating monkey addicted to cigarettes is very funny." But overall, the game is schizophrenic. Hilarious here, offensive there. He blamed the turnover of Sierra/Vivendi Universal staff midway for the uneven gameplay. I have mixed emotions about the Magnum Cum Laude. It's like watching a videotape of your son recorded by his kidnapper. It's nice to see he's still alive, but under what conditions? The October 2004 issue of Playboy had its first video game centerfold, a two-page spread of Luba Licious, a Larry Lovage love interest. She is wearing only a green net cap. Luba has Kate Moss-sized arms and a 21-inch waist, both overshadowed by her wide hips, prominent bikini bottom tan, and two round breasts as large as her head. A small bio lists Luba's turn-ons, jello shots, Burning Man, college professors, my roommates. Turn-offs, the missionary position, long-term relationships, teetotalers, and her favorite book, Kama Sutra, aka the Bible. Playboy had been taking heavy criticism for retouching and enhancing spreads for nearly 2 decades, since advances in desktop publishing made it easier to manipulate photos. In reference to a recent centerfold, one 2003 letter to the editor congratulated Playboy for making the best piece of digital art since Shrek. With the video game centerfolds, which will become an annual affair, Playboy was no longer about sexy pixies, but sexy pixels. The following year, Lad Magazine's Gear and Loaded closed, FHM went completely online, and Maxim circulation topped off. The Maxim generation was growing up, and, as a result, may have become a new, younger audience for Playboy and its compatriots GQ and Esquire. E! Entertainment would give Playboy magnate Hugh Hefner and his three young girlfriends a reality TV show. Most episodes would find the greatest generation hero and Viagra supporter watching his two 20-something and one late teen girlfriends romp around the Playboy mansion estate, trying on different fetish clothes, throwing large parties, and occasionally playing with each other. The Girls Next Door became E's number one program. Hefner spent his 80th birthday in the mansion, blowing out his candles with his three girlfriends and an audience of millions. Joe Francis did not buy Playboy Enterprises. In 2004, the Federal Trade Commission found Mantra Films, Inc. guilty of unauthorized shipping and billing. His opt-out subscription plan was considered deceptive. He was fined $1.1 million, half of which went back to customers. 2 years later, Mantra Films Incorporated lost two lawsuits, one worth $2.1 million for not keeping accurate age records on file, and a second for filming two 17-year-old girls in Florida. In April 2007, a Reno, Nevada federal court indicted Francis on 2 counts of tax evasions after millions of dollars in deductions, among other discrepancies, were found on his returns. The mogul faced up to 10 years in prison. The Gathering and Top Heavy Studios were sued 4 months after the release of the Guy Game. One of the women featured was actually a 17-year-old from South Padre Island, Texas. She wasn't an adult, which automatically made the game footage non-consensual. In summer 2005, the judge found for the girl, deemed the Guy Game child pornography, ordered the title off the shelves. The Gathering recalled the remaining copies. In an attempt to recoup, the company offered a compilation DVD called The Guy Game, Game Over. The rumors are true, the website now read. Most controversial video game ever created, The Guy Game, is no longer available. The Gathering also sold a special offer, the DVD along with a hat and t-shirt with the Guy Game logo. It went for $40.